There was definitely a tag that I did way a million years ago where Zemo is like Kaiser Soze, you know, like, oh, he's been pulling the strings from prison in some way.
Load out and lock in, Marvel fans, because Thunderbolts is now in theaters. The latest film in the Marvel Cinematic Universe reshuffles the MCU's status quo in a big way in the third act, setting up a new Avengers roster that will presumably be a major part of Avengers Doomsday and Secret Wars. We spoke with the film's co-writer Eric Pearson, who's worked on everything from The Consultant to Thor Ragnarok to the Fantastic Four First Steps, to dive into all the little details and big spoilers in Thunderbolts. As Pearson, who shares a writing credit with Joanna Calo, explains, the core idea of Thunderbolts started with Florence Pugh's Black Widow character, which then led to the inclusion of David Harbour, who was also in that Black Widow film, and Hannah John-Kamen from the Ant-Man and the Wasp side of things.
It was always the idea to follow Yelena Belova as the lead of this, which brought in Alexei. Always wanted to use her. There was a version where Bill Foster was involved for a bit as part of the Ghost storyline. And there was a version at first where Bucky was not involved, and we brought him in, I think, in the second draft. But yeah, it was kind of always the same team from the beginning with those two minor alterations.
The informal team, which is informally called the Thunderbolts, also includes Sebastian Stan's Bucky Barnes, Wyatt Russell's John Walker, and by the end of the film, Robert Bob Reynolds.
Who are you?
I'm Bob.
The latter character is new to the MCU. Altered by Valentina Allegra de Fontaine to have superhuman abilities, he becomes the Sentry, who Julia Louis-Dreyfus's Valentina intends to be a replacement for the Avengers.
Let's talk facts. The Avengers are not coming.
Pearson explains that Sentry wasn't always in the movie.
The first pitch was John Walker would be the punching villain, really, at the end of this, that Valentina, as part of her manipulation of him, convinced him that his super soldier serum needed upkeep. She was actually implanting this kind of time bomb in him that was going to go off at some point that she could set off whenever she wanted. And then he kind of, in his own way, hulks out and becomes someone that they have to fight.
But as this was being written, Captain America Brave New World was also being made.
Then, you know, you hear that Captain America's doing Red Hulk and we didn't want to do that. It just didn't feel right. It would still fit to my goal, which was ending this Marvel movie with a hug, not a punch. They were going to never win a fight against a Hulk kind of character. So they were going to have to eventually just talk him down.
And so entered the Sentry, whose adventures Pearson remembered reading while in the Marvel Writers Program. And with the Sentry, of course, also comes his dark side, which is known as the Void. In the film, this dark persona is activated, attacking New York and turning everyone in his path into shadows.
If that's just heroic ambition and self-esteem on one side and depression and self-loathing on the other side, it kind of works the same way. And if we do that, then Bob and the Sentry and the Void are pretty much all of our characters' emotional journey wrapped up into one entity. He was the ultimate person that they couldn't defeat in any sort of physical way and needed to find an emotional solution for.
Look, I've been where you are. The past doesn't go away.
In the climactic moments of Thunderbolts, Yelena and the team willingly go into the Shadow Realm to stop the Void, and through the power of empathy and that good old group hug that Pearson promised, they help Bob undo all the damage he caused. This happens just in time for the team to stumble into a press conference held by Valentina, where she dubs them the new Avengers. During the closing credits, we see a bunch of fun magazine covers and the like, which question the validity of these new Avengers before a mid-credits scene where Red Guardian tries to convince a fellow shopper to buy a box of Wheaties that has the team's picture on it. His dream finally realized. And then, the post-credits scene is set 14 months later, where we learn the new Avengers are having difficulties securing the rights to their team name because of interference from Sam Wilson, aka Captain America. Cap doesn't show up, but Bucky mentions him by name. This would seem to indicate that Sam is working on forming his own team of Avengers, just as ex-President Ross had asked him to lead back in Brave New World. Interestingly, the post-credits scene was not written by Pearson.
I did not, and I'm super jealous of it because it's so fun and it's so great. And one of my favorite moments in the whole movie is just Wyatt Russell. I don't know what any of these buttons do. You know, nobody labeled them. It just cracks me up.
The writer explains that while he took a couple stabs at post-credit scenes for the film, the Hollywood strikes interfered with the production of Thunderbolts. Things were paused for 6 or 7 months, and then had to go back into pre-production, but the Marvel landscape had changed by then.
I was thrown together a post-credit sequence that had to deal with Kang, had to deal with a more of a direct relation to the fact that Valentina sent Yelena after Clint Barton, after Hawkeye, the Hawkeye show. But, as time passes, you're like, well, is anyone going to make that connection still to the thing that they haven't seen in 2 or 3 years?
We will protect you.
The post-credit scene ends with a moment fans have been waiting for a long, long time. The new Avengers get a notification of an approaching spacecraft, and we see a ship with a big 4 emblazoned on the side. The Fantastic Four have finally arrived in the MCU. Pearson explains that this is not always how the team were supposed to land in the so-called sacred timeline.
When they started shooting Thunderbolts, I was actually in Burbank writing Fantastic Four and checking in on how Thunderbolts was going, because I was how's my baby? Is it walking? Is it running? And everybody was saying that Thunderbolts was going really great. And from being in the Fantastic Four room, I knew that it felt very far at the time from the Thunderbolts world. But just based off of how they architect these things, I'm sure that it has that there's going to be a next step in a movie coming out soon.
But we can find a way together.
Now that we know the Thunderbolts are actually the new Avengers, it makes perfect sense why the team will be major players in Avengers Doomsday. They all got director's chairs in the big Doomsday cast announcement after all, aside from poor Taskmaster, of course.
Damn.
Since Sam Wilson doesn't appear to have actually formed a new team of Avengers yet, the new Avengers will presumably be the first line of defense against Robert Downey Jr.'s Dr. Doom, and the Fantastic Four too, maybe. But that's just the tip of the helicarrier when it comes to questions we have after Thunderbolts, however.
We can be the ones that are coming.
Bucky being revealed to be a US congressman was one of the weirder beats in Brave New World, and the payoff in Thunderbolts doesn't help matters. He trips over his words in a press interview, and his political responsibilities don't stop him from getting on his motorcycle and firing explosives at Ox vehicles, so why was he even a part of Congress to begin with? In the drafts of the film Pearson worked on, though, it turns out Bucky had a very different day job.
That happened after me. That was a Kevin idea from what I understand. It was all the same scenes, but Bucky was kind of a lobbyist a bit. A better analogy would be like when you hire an old baseball player to shake hands at a car wash. Politicians were using him as a way to propagandize. So you're meant to meet him and oh, this is humiliating. What a terrible fall for Bucky. And then you're like, oh wait, he's actually infiltrated this world of politics and commerce because he's investigating Valentina, and he's got this congressman who's an ally to him, and they're working together, and then he goes on the hunt.
As for whether or not he's even still in Congress when he's part of the new Avengers, we have no clue. Clearly, Sam Wilson is not getting along with the new Avengers and is trying to take the copyright for the team name from them. Bucky says he tried to get through to Sam, but that the conversation didn't go well. So, why is Sam being a jerk about this? Doesn't he want to build a team of superheroes? He and Bucky have worked together many times in the past, so what is his problem with the new Avengers when Bucky is on the roster? Hopefully, Doomsday sheds some light on this front, because as it stands, it feels out of character for Sam to act this way without a good reason. R.I.P. Antonia Dreykov, aka Taskmaster. Some fans guessed she was on the chopping block because of her being removed from some of the trailer footage, as well as because she was one of the only Thunderbolts characters to not get a Doomsday director's chair. But Taskmaster doesn't even make it 15 minutes into the movie. When Valentina's assets all wind up in the same vault, they battle each other per her orders, and during the fight, Ghost shoots Taskmaster through the forehead.
What the hell?
Given that actress Olga Kurylenko is fourth billed and she might have been in other scenes in the film according to the early trailers, we can't help but wonder what happened here.
That's one of the biggest changes from my final, because in the last version that I did, she lived out the whole movie, and there was a pretty big subplot of her and Ava connecting as two characters that were kind of raised in labs and being controlled by other people, and Ava having kind of earned her autonomy a little bit earlier than Antonia was kind of big sistering her a little bit through the movie. But yeah, when I came back and watched the first cut, that was the biggest shock to me. Everything else was in the same place, but I was like, oh my God, you guys just killed that Taskmaster right there. So being able to not know it's coming and feel that shock, I understood why they did it.
The answer is no. And yes.
We wanted to do something different than authority figure forces criminals to work together. And once you kind of take that out, the people from the comics who have put them together in the past, the Baron Zemos, the Thunderbolt Rosses, they don't fit the narrative in the same way. So while we're very aware and we talked about these ideas and hey, if there was ever a way to include them, it's great because it makes sense and it honors the comics, but we also didn't want to break our story that we were excited about just to do fan service.
That said, Zemo at least made it into the script, albeit very briefly.
Speaking of dead tags, there was definitely a tag that I did way a million years ago where Zemo is like Kaiser Soze, you know, like, oh, he's been pulling the strings from prison in some way. I don't think that iteration lived longer than like, hey, what about this? Nope, right. Not that.
Will we see two distinct teams of Avengers in Doomsday? Avengers and Avengers with a Z? Maybe, but hopefully not. The main plot of Thunderbolts takes place after Brave New World, since Valentina references Thaddeus Ross becoming Red Hulk during her impeachment hearing. And the post-credits scene is over a year after that. What was Sam doing all that time? Will he recruit the likes of Falcon, Thor, Ant-Man, etc. to make his own team that is separate from the new Avengers? And will they battle Civil War style before they eventually unite to face Doom? And where do the X-Men fit into all of this?
I'll come by and check on you later.
We're only a few months away from the Fantastic Four First Steps, which is arriving on July 25th, 2025. Since the Fan Four are coming from an alternate reality in the multiverse and not the MCU's sacred timeline, this indicates that ship has just made a reality-hopping journey. Yet, wouldn't that really only make sense as the end of First Steps? Fan 4 changing realities is probably the end of the film or a post-credit scene of its own. If so, we basically already know how First Steps ends. Or do we? Is Marvel playing a trick on us? And is there more to this tease than it seems? We asked Pearson if the Fantastic Four are going to be the linchpin of the MCU moving forward.
The fans are the most important parts of the MCU, like what they react to and what they love, you know, helps dictate so much of what's going on. I mean, I think the Fantastic Four, I think because also there's four of them and they're all of great importance. And then there is the Sue and Reed at the head of it as like the most brilliant mind in the universe and the most caring heart in the universe. They're certainly going to steer the car for a bit, but the universe, the multiverse right now is pretty big. So I don't want to calculate any weight on their shoulders.
Well, what did you think of Thunderbolts? Let's discuss in the comments, and be sure to check out why Daredevil Born Again has found the perfect Punisher villain. And of course, please like and subscribe to IGN wherever you like to watch.
Alexi, have you slept?
I'll sleep when I'm dead.
I'd like not to die today, so maybe somebody else should be driving.